In the past, in the time we're talking about, it's primarily 80s and 90s were probably the high point of the population in the Susquehanna, and people came from far and wide to fish the Susquehanna River. In some places, people made it their job and made a pretty substantial livelihood off of bringing people to fish and fishing on the river as well. So there was a very big draw. A study we did in 2007, or focusing on 2007, documented that there was $3.35 million spent on just recreational fishing in the Susquehanna River.
The Susquehanna is a warm water fishery. It has been, in the past 15 years, a world famous warm water fishery that has brought millions of dollars worth of economic growth or economic development to the communities along the river.
2005, we began to see widespread disease of young year smallmouth bass, and in this case we're talking about diseases, bacterial infections. And upon closer look, the bacterial infections that were there were secondary, so there was something else causing those bacterial infections to occur, some other stressor, some other factor that was driving them to that. And at this point in time, it was large-scale mortality. There was large numbers of dead and lesion fish floating downstream, and they were obvious to anglers. When we look at adults, we see that there's high degrees of intersex or feministic traits. In this case, the presence of egg precursor cells in testicular tissue of male bass, as well as a protein vitellogenin, which cues egg production and yolk production in females as well.
A few dead fish here and there, and fish with wounds that don't heal. But when males have eggs forming in their sexual organs, when males have immature eggs forming in their testes, and it's not a couple of them, it's at nearly 100% of the fish that were sampled. That's genetic mutation, that's sexual mutations. If you as a human being are not concerned that we have created a system where rampant sexual mutation is happening in our environment, then you're not paying attention.
From an agricultural standpoint, we have fertilizers. We have agricultural runoff from manures. Some of those manures also probably contain some of the endocrine disrupting compounds or emerging contaminants. So you're now looking at, is it this or is it that? You know, the source could be the same, but we're not quite sure of the mechanism.
The biggest problem is that almost all our problems are invisible. That's the biggest problem. In the 60s, when you could see sewage and all the associated products that come out with sewage, and oil slicks, and people just dumping thousands of tires, and different colors coming out from the different industries, and when you could see that, you'd say, oh yeah, look, the river's messed up. But if you look at the river, it is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And unless you're willing to listen to the scientists, unless you can do those two things, listen to science and be willing to make a change that will benefit your children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, then there's no reason to acknowledge there is a problem.